Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to have a little bit of a look at, well, it's a new Eeleektross, of all things. I mean, it's a Pokemon that's literally got my name in. I think at some point we probably had to have a chat about it. And we have had some interesting Eeleektross in the past, including one not that long ago that could literally be played, even though it's a stage 2, directly from your hand, which is kind of awesome. This one, unfortunately, does not have that ability, but that doesn't mean it can't be kind of fun and kind of annoying and force you into some very awkward situations. I should point out that one you can play normally was in Unified Mind, so it has survived the rotation, and as long as you've got at least 4 lightning energy in play, you can just play it down, so that is one to bear in mind. As for this Eeleektross, what do we see? Well, if we start off with the basics, I should actually mention our translation here comes from the lovely Joe over at Cerebi.net and the lovely Antoine Boulet, using 2 awesome people for translations. What could be better? And what we've got here, if we start off with the basics, is 160 HP, which is on the higher end for stage 2s. It's not phenomenal, but it's alright. We've got a retreat cost of 3, which is that awkward situation between free retreat with air balloon and extra HP with buff padding. And we've got a weakness to fighting, and as I've said in a bunch of videos, that means just sharing a weakness with things like Eternatus and things like Vikavolt, etc., which means your opponent is going to be able to have a little bit of a field day if they're playing fighting Pokemon, and I really do think more people going forward are going to be playing fighting Pokemon. I mean, I definitely am going to be. I've told you that before. But we are a lightning Pokemon. It means you've got Tapu Koko to accelerate a little bit of energy. Does mean you've lost a lot of your tricks, but then you've still got that new Electrode, which is going to accelerate 2 energy from the deck, as long as you knock it out, and yes, that does give up a prize. And you can accelerate energy with stuff like Pikachu and Zekrom, so it ain't looking too bad. But what does it do? Well, it's got a couple of interesting attacks here, but the first one I think is probably the best one among them. For a single lightning energy, so you're talking pretty gosh darn cheap, what you do is 60 damage. 60 for a single energy on a stage 2 is fine, if unspectacular. But if your opponent attaches an energy to the defending Pokemon during their next turn, from the hand obviously, you place 6 damage counters onto that Pokemon. Oh, that's pretty gosh darn nice. Now, the translation we've got from Joe, and I'm fairly sure this is correct here, is if your opponent attaches any energy, i.e. if your opponent were to use something like a welder, and then be attaching 3 energy from their hand, 1 normally, 2 from the welder, that would not give you 180 damage onto that Pokemon. It would just be the standard 60 damage. It is 60 damage if they attach 1 energy. It is 60 damage if they're using, I don't know, Frostmoth to go and attach 20 energy. But this is kind of nice. Now, in reality, if everything works, if this actually comes out like you would expect, you're doing 120 damage for a single lightning energy. And doing 120 for a single energy is good. That is a decent amount of damage. We can live with that rather nicely. But it's not strictly 120 damage. It's 120 damage if they attach an energy, which isn't perfect. Although again, 120 for single energy is great. And it is also worth bearing in mind that it is 60 damage and then 6 damage counters if they attach an energy. So if you're hitting for weakness, you're not talking 240. You're talking 180. 60, which is double for weakness, up to 120, and then 6 damage counters puts it up to 180. So it's not strictly exactly like you might think it is. Okay. But this is still kind of fun. One of the more awkward things this is going to do is it is going to put your opponent in a really awkward situation where they're going, I really want to attach an energy, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to justify that, bearing in mind I've got to take the damage. And that's what Eelektross does. So your opponent's got a 2 energy, I don't know, Zacian in the active. So you do 60 damage to it, and your opponent wants to attach an energy, but if they do attach an energy, there's an extra 6 damage counters, and that means that they're going to have 120 on, and then going to be in range of a KO that they wouldn't be in range of if they hadn't gone and attached that energy. Sometimes they're just going to go, that's worth it. And on those days, well, that's just the way it is, right? If your opponent can take it, they're probably going to take it. And that's a little bit sad, etc., but sometimes it's going to be worth doing. But there are going to be other times where they just cannot take the damage, and that is where you're going to absolutely make hay here. So I like this attack. Hopefully it will force your opponent into some awkward situations. Hopefully it will end up that they take 120 damage. Do bear in mind, there really are going to be some times where your opponent just goes, you know what, I'll stick another Pokemon active, that'll be fine. Hey-ho. At least you can hopefully force them into some awkward situations. If nothing else, it's a really interesting, unique attack. As for the other attack, 1 Lightning, 2 Colorless Energy, 120 to the active, plus 30 to one of your bench, plus 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Cool. And the thing is here, this is a really weird kind of attack that can really work. Now, 120 for free energy on a stage 2, I'm not loving as much as I could. I don't think it's out and out terrible garbage, to be clear, but I do think that it's slightly underwhelming given the amount you're actually putting into it. Now, you've got Tapu Koko to accelerate energy, and it's a non-V Pokemon, non-GX Pokemon, so you can use Twin Energy, and it's an evolved Pokemon, so you can use Triple Acceleration, though that will fall off at the end of your turn. So that's all rather nice. But 120 is a little bit low, but this is how we make it work for us. This is how we go, you know what? This is actually totally worth it. First, we do 30 to one of our opponent's bench. And I know that it's only 30, and it's not often going to be the difference between a win and a loss, but it can put a Pokemon into KO range. Yes, there are the occasional things running around like, Magikarp's usually got 30 HP. So that's fun, and you can get a KO on them, and that's wonderful. But outside of that, you're not getting KOs. What you're doing, put it this way, if doing a little bit of extra damage wasn't good, then Zigzagoon that drops 1 damage counter wouldn't see any play, and it does see a lot of play. You need to think a few turns ahead, and there'll be some matchups where you're over KOing so much, or you're 2-hit KOing so much, that it really doesn't matter. But then, by the same token, there are going to be some matchups where this actually works quite nicely. Sweet. But you also do 30 to one of your own bench Pokemon, and this is where a little bit of techiness can come in. You can make this work for you. You can play a Spiritomb. Now, Spiritomb from Unbroken Bonds does 10 damage base plus 30 damage for each damage counter on it, maxing out at 160 because 60 HP. So you can essentially do this, and then you put 30 damage onto a Spiritomb, then you use the ability next turn, and you got 4 damage counters on you hitting 130 on a single energy basic Pokemon. You will need something like an Aurora Energy or just a Darkness Energy here to actually make this work. Or we've got the new Phanpy coming, which has got the same attack, except it's just 30 times, no 10 damage base. But you can have 6 damage counters on because you've got 70 HP. So what you could do here is essentially attack twice, put both the damage on Phanpy, then you've got 6 damage counters on, you're hitting 180. That could be fun. And I'm not saying everyone's going to run out and play Eelektros decks with Spiritomb and Phanpy, but I am saying that it's something you can absolutely be working with. And yes, I know that makes your Phanpy really vulnerable to being KO'd, same with your Spiritomb, but don't worry about it, because if they KO your weak bench Pokemon, then you can just attack with Eelektros again, put damage on a new bench Pokemon, except you've still got your 160, hitting for 120, and doing 30 to their bench at the same time, while they're taking a weak KO on a tech Pokemon. I think that's probably that's an exchange which I don't think is out of your favour, is a roundabout way to phrase it. I like this Pokemon. I don't think it's an absolute powerhouse. I don't think it's the next best deck in the format, but I do think it's got 2 really nice attacks that you can have an awful lot of fun with, and for that reason I think it's one you need to take a little bit seriously. but I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would you? Oh wait, no, we didn't give a Wassy score. A nice ordinary everyday run-of-the-mill 3 Wassies. There we go. A good deck, and one that I think we should be having a play around with. But now I'd like to know what you think, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.